Hey, Jackie, are you there? You're muted, so I can't hear you if you are.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, now I can.
Okay.
Do you have a, is your microphone, you don't have a microphone for your computer?
No.
Okay. Okay, good to know. So I did just set up the YouTube broadcast, so it is going live.
Oh, okay.
Keep that in mind. Yeah, but it went through without any problems this time, so that's good.
Do you need me to stay unmuted or mute?
No, you can mute. I just was making sure you were here, that's all. And that everything was working. Thank you.
Hey, Dan.
Hi, who's that? David?
Carr.
Oh, hey, David. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing well, thanks.
How about them Bears, huh?
Yeah. Asked me 3 weeks ago, I decided it's great, but not so much these days.
Yeah, they're what, still 5-2, right?
5-3 now.
5-3. You'd take 5-3 though, right?
Yeah, as long as, you know, the wins start stacking up again.
Yeah, you got to take 5-3. You can't. Not after the last few years.
True. Well, we're halfway through. We'll see how they finish out.
Yeah. Well, if they go 5-3 the other half, you know, 10-6 get you in the playoffs. Actually, probably 9-7 get you in the playoffs.
We got those pesky Packers to worry about. So
They didn't look good.
yeah, they've been hit and miss too.
Hey,
David, I'll just give you a heads up. We are, I did set up the live stream already, so just so you know.
That wasn't cussing or any of that.
Yeah, I think football is pretty harmless, but you know.
Yeah. Well, we got 8 minutes.
Yeah.
So
I just always seem the struggle with that as we get the meeting going. So, yeah, just try to get an early jump on it, but went flawlessly tonight. So go figure.
yeah, I'm just in the office catching up on stuff. So I figured I'd just log in early and keep an eye on it, so. No, it's all good.
Good. I'm gonna start letting people in another few minutes or so. Just kind of
Okay.
waiting for everyone to stack up here.
All right, well, I'm gonna mute out and just keep an eye on it, so I'll be back in 8 minutes.
Thanks.
Hey, Dan.
Vince, how are you?
Good. So I'm using my cell phone for audio since I've been having trouble with my computer audio.
Perfect. Yeah, you sound loud and clear, and your screen looks great.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Give it a few minutes here still before we get started.
Gotcha.
Good evening, everyone. We're just waiting on a few others here. Not quite 5:30 yet, but I want to give time for people to sign on and just ensure that we do have a quorum tonight. So give it a couple more minutes here. Okay, well, I have 5:30 on my watch. It does look like we might have a quorum, but I'm going to go ahead and call roll here. And if anyone does join in, we will just note that as we when they come into the meeting. So I'm just going to read through the roster that I have, and please just confirm your attendance if you are here. Let's see, starting at the top, I have Sig Euronymous,
Here.
Harvey Cates.
Hello there.
Harvey. Alan Chow.
I see him.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute.
No problem. Thank you, Alan. Siraj Burma.
Yep, here.
Jillian Keller.
Good evening.
Paul Malakowski. Not seeing Paul. Dora Martinez, is that, hopefully I know you had name change. Is that correct, Dora?
Yes, I'm here. Yes,
Okay.
it is correct. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you. Vince Harris.
I'm here. Good evening.
Good evening. Lindsay Costello. Not seeing Lindsay. Rudy Leon. Not seeing Rudy either. Imagine she's kind of busy right now. Mayuko Majima.
Hi, I'm here.
Hello, thank you. Jeff Bonanno.
Here.
Laura Azam. Do not see Laura. Mike Sozinski. Hello, Mike. I see you. I don't hear you. And Mauricio Urias. Oh, I think I heard you now.
Sorry.
Oh, you're good. And Mauricio
Yep,
Urias?
you're present.
Okay, thank you. Looks like we have Paul Malakowski joining as well. Paul, can you hear us? I think you're on mute. Okay.
Okay, now you can hear me.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry I'm late.
Oh, no worries. So we do have enough for a quorum, and before we get started, I'll just want to acknowledge everyone else on the line for the record. Obviously, myself, Dan Denges, RTC, Jacqueline Maldonado, RTC, Jim Gee, RTC, Adam Spear, RTC, Amy Cummings, RTC, Bill Thomas, RTC, David Carr, RTC, Maria Paz Fernandez, RTC, and I believe that's everyone. Is there anyone that I missed? Okay, hearing none. Just a couple more reminders. This is being recorded and also broadcast live on our RTC's YouTube channel. And I would ask that everyone just mute their microphone when they're not speaking. When you do speak, please state your name. And also, if you make a motion, to also please state your name. And Mr. Chair, if you wouldn't mind reading back when a motion is made, who motioned it and seconded. And I think that about covers it. And I'll turn it over to you, Vince, if you want to get started.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Again, good evening, everyone. This is Vince Harris. We're going to go ahead and get started with the meeting. We'll call the meeting to order at 5:34 p.m. It's good to see all of you. We'll begin with item number 1, approval of the agenda. If I could get someone to make a motion to approve the agenda. Anyone?
Jeff Bonanno, I move to approve the agenda.
And if I could get a second, please.
Jillian Keller, I second.
Moved by Jeff and Jillian. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, we have an agenda for the evening. Moving on to item number 2, public comment. Dan, did we receive any public comment for the meeting this evening?
We did not receive any public comment.
All right, then we'll move on to item number 3. Item number 3 is approval of the October 7th, 2020 meeting minutes. Hope all had a chance to maybe take a look at those minutes. Are there any changes, corrections, or additions to the minutes? Okay, hearing none, I would ask someone to move to accept the minutes of that meeting.
Jeff Bonanno, I move to accept the minutes for the meeting.
Thank you, Jeff. And could I get a second, please?
Mauricio Urias, I second.
Moved by Jeff and Mauricio. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the item passes. We're moving on quickly, looks like, to item number 4. We have a presentation this evening from legal counsel. Counsel, are you here?
I am, thank you.
Good to have you.
Thanks for having me. My name is Adam Spear. I'm in-house legal counsel for the RTC. Dan and Amy asked that I attend this meeting and kind of provide a reminder to everybody about the Nevada Open Meeting Law and how it's relevant to your meetings and your participation on the committee. The Nevada Open Meeting Law is pretty dense. It can be found in the Nevada Revised Statutes in Chapter 241. The Nevada Attorney General's Office puts out a manual about the open meeting law, and it's about 120 pages. So there's kind of a lot going on, but what I thought I would do is just kind of provide a brief summary of what it is and when it applies, and just touch on a couple areas where it's probably most important for you and your participation on this committee. So the purpose of the open meeting law is to ensure that the actions and deliberations of public bodies are conducted in a public manner. This committee is a public body as defined in NRS 241. The open meeting law is the reason that RTC posts agendas of these meetings and provides notice of the items that are going to be considered and the actions that are going to be taken so that the public knows the meetings are happening and they can participate and watch and provide comments during the public comment opportunities. So under the language of NRS 241, the open meeting law applies to meetings at which a quorum is present to deliberate towards a decision or take action. And the term quorum, the term deliberate, and the term action are all defined in NRS. Quorum of this committee is 8 members. That's specified in your bylaws. And so basically that means the open meeting law is going to apply at any meeting at which 8 or more of you are present and deliberating towards a decision or action. A couple things to note: the gathering doesn't have to be physical. It can happen electronically. So for example, if a quorum CC'd on an email chain and there's deliberation going back and forth on an action. It can also happen through serial communications, which is something I'll touch on in a minute. But I think kind of the 2 main areas I was going to focus on for today was to talk about what the open meeting law means in terms of the interactions that you have with each other outside of scheduled meetings, and then the interactions that happen at these scheduled meetings. So, outside of these meetings, you're allowed to communicate and share ideas, and even, and it doesn't really, it probably ever would happen here, but you can even lobby for votes on items. But you can't do it with a quorum. And so, it's important that you not get together either, in person or electronically to have those kind of communications, because a quorum would be present and you could have a potential violation of the open meeting law. The idea of serial communications is even if you don't have 8 people together, or there aren't 8 people in an email chain, if there are individual communications that are happening that taken together and collectively constitute, a deliberation by quorum, you can also have a potential open meeting law violation there. So I think the takeaway is just to be careful about how many people you're talking with and how you're having those communications, and just save your deliberations for these agendized meetings. Looking at the interactions at this meeting, probably the most important thing to remember is to stick to the items that are on the agenda. If the conversation starts to get too far outside of what's clearly and concisely described on the agenda, you could find yourself in a position where the committee's deliberating on an action that hasn't been agendized, and there could potentially be a open meeting law violation there. So I think those are kind of the 2 main things just to kind of remind everybody about. There are some pretty severe consequences for violating the open meeting law. There are criminal penalties, there are civil penalties. If an open meeting law violation is deemed to have occurred, the action that was taken is voided, which means that it effectively never happened. For this committee and what you do, the likelihood that those penalties would be enforced is very low, or that those consequences would actually happen. But this is an important committee. Your participation on this committee is important. So it's important to follow the law, even if maybe some of those consequences aren't as severe here as they would be in other situations with other public bodies. So, if you want to learn more about the open meeting law, like I said, the Nevada Attorney General's office puts out a really extensive document on it. You can get really into the weeds. And if you have any other questions at any time, you can reach out to me through Dan and Amy, and I'd be happy to answer them. And I'd be happy to answer any questions right now as well, if you have any.
Do we have any questions for council? I guess I have one. It relates to our committee. What are the posting requirements for this meeting?
So the posting requirements are the same as for any other public body. The agenda has to be posted in various locations and at various times, at least 9 a.m. 3 days before the meeting. Now, some of those things have changed recently with the governor's emergency directive. But in general, those are the requirements under NRS 241.
Okay. Any other questions for council? Well, hearing none, Council Spear, we appreciate you coming this evening and thank you for the information.
Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure being here.
All right, thanks. Okay, moving on to item number 5, which is acknowledge receipt of report on the Center Street Multimodal Improvements Project for possible action. Do we have a presentation from staff? Please.
I'm sorry. I will turn this over to Maria Paz Fernandez. She's the project manager on the Center Street project, and she'll be presenting tonight.
Okay.
Maria?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Oh, yep, we can hear you now.
Sorry, I
It's
was
okay.
muted. I was just trying to figure out how to unmute myself. Well, hello everyone. My name is Maria Paz Fernandez, and I am the project manager of the Center Street Multimodal Improvements Project. I just want to start with the safety and connectivity goals of this project. How are we going to achieve that? Simple. We're to provide a high quality bicycle connection between the university and Midtown by closing the gap, the existing gap in the core cycling network. And if you recall, I changed the name a little bit when I started my presentation. Center Street Multimodal Improvements Project, AKA Center Street Cycle Track Project, because we are doing corrective maintenance that is going to improve the pavement for the drivers, for the vehicles, as well as sidewalk reconstruction. So that will diversify the transportation options on the Center Street corridor. So what is a cycle track? This is an excerpt from NACTO, and this is a two-way cycle track. And as you can read, a two-way cycle track is a protected bicycle facility that is separated from both vehicle and pedestrian traffic. So as you can see, the two-way cycle track is separated by a curb from the sidewalk, and there is a space or a buffer between the travel lane and the cycle track. And in this case, there have candlesticks, which will serve as a physical barrier in addition to the buffer. So for the project limits, the project will start at Virginia Street all the way to 9th Street. The cycle track itself starts at Moran Street all the way to 9th. At Moran Street, we are proposing sharrows to connect to Virginia Street and to Holcomb to provide cycling connectivity. And from Moran to Virginia Street, we're proposing a southbound bike lane and a northbound sharrow. And I will be able to go into the specific in the next slide. The sidewalk replacement starts at 5th Street to 9th Street. And then the pavement, the corrective pavement from the north of the Truckee River all the way to 9th Street. And this is a rendering of what we expect once we're finalized with the project. This is the corner of 2nd Street. And you can see the pawn shop, Calibo parking lot, Harrah's, and you see the two-way cycle track on the west side or the left side of the road. So this is a plan view, top view from 9th to Maple. And you can see the two-way cycle track on the west side. We're proposing the cycle track instead of the existing southbound travel lane. This option has a lot of benefits. One of the benefits will be that we won't be reducing the capacity of the northbound. There's a lot of cars that get out of this interchange, this freeway interchange, and go to the university. So if we were just to shift and place the southbound lane right here, we will lose one northbound lane. The other benefit will be that Center Street will be completely northbound. Right now, it is northbound up to Maple, and many drivers, it creates a lot of confusion in drivers. The other section I want to focus on is right here at Commercial and First. This is City of Reno Hall. We were able to accommodate the two-way cycle track along with the fire department parking space, bus stop, and loading zones. And the reason why I'm emphasizing this slide is because we heard from Harris and Calneva that by implementing the cycle track, they might be losing the loading zone, which in this case, I want to prove that that's not the case. Great news, we were able to accommodate everything as existing. We were just kind of shifting a lane. Okay, and then here, this is a section from Stewart to Toma Street. If you notice right here, this is Moran Street. That's the beginning of, or the end of the two-way cycle track. We have proposed sharrows here to connect to Holcomb and Virginia Street. And then here at Moran, if you want to continue south, you might be able to do so by using the bike lane all the way to Virginia Street. And if you're in Virginia Street and you want to take Center Street going northbound, you will share the road with the one lane traffic up to Moran once you get to the two-way cycle track. I also wanted to share this slide because everything comes with a price, right? So the price is a small price that we will be paying per se, not only money, also in infrastructure. We will be reducing, we will using one lane in some sections of the road, as you can see the difference from the existing lanes to the proposed lane. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. We did a traffic operations analysis, and the results show that we're not losing capacity. The road still performs well under the standards or the level of service by City of Reno. So that's also important to know. Now here, this is the on-street parking price. So here in the north, there'll be some loss of parking. However, the university is planning to build some kind of garage parking structure. So we don't see that as a major cost. However, if you recall, when this project was called the Center Street Cycle Track, the idea was to start the cycle track right here at Cheney Street. However, we were going to lose a higher number of on-street parking on this area. So we were able to negotiate or to minimize the loss starting at Moran. As you can see here, 21 and 13 spaces in this area. As of project timeline, last month we started with a preliminary design. So we expect 30% design to be finalized by the spring of next year. Final design fall of 2022. And then by the spring of 2023, we should have a contractor on board ready to start construction by the summer of that year of 2023. And that's all I have. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me, either my email or by phone right here. And if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the presenter this evening?
Hey, good evening, Maria. This is Dora Martinez. Chairman, may I speak?
Go ahead, Dora.
Hi. So as you all know, I am totally blind and I'm sure I have a lot of questions, but I can't see your pictures because it's not accessible. Maria, would you mind if I give you a call tomorrow? Because I do have some questions and I do want to understand. I do respect the cycling community because I do tandem bike and I like cycling, but I do want to understand what you're talking about. Is there a way that you guys have tactile for those of us who can't see so we can understand what you are saying?
You can. Do you
Tactile
have my phone
map.
number?
I think Dan or Jacqueline can email it to me because I'm sure it's in the chat. I just can't locate it right now.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, just call me and we can talk, and then we can figure out a way of sharing this information. Better share this information with you.
Perfect. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Maria, this is Vince Harris. I just have a couple questions. I was wondering, from an RTC standpoint, do you all do your own traffic analysis in-house, or do you hire a consultant?
We hire a consultant, and the consultant is Headway Transportation.
Headway. And for the design work that you're going to be doing, or it's underway right now, who's the consultant for that?
Is the same consultant, Headway. They were selected via RFP. We made a selection. Gosh, the dates escape my mind right now, but I will say it probably last year or 2019. Yeah, 2019. We're still in 2020. We made a selection from 5 proposals that we received, 5 different firms. Headway was the most qualified, and they were awarded this project.
And one final, is Headway a local consultant?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions for Maria?
This is Jillian Keller. I have a question. If you could focus again for a moment on the southern section of the project, I'd love just a little bit more information about how a cyclist should plan to get from where there's sharrows and the bike lane to joining the cycle track. If you can just describe that.
Absolutely. And that section, the specific area hasn't been finalized. This is just a very high level proposal. The city of Reno still has to approve what we're proposing here. This is just an idea. Of course, you know, what I'm thinking is like there will be some kind of a painted crosswalk or something. It's not a crosswalk, well, bike lane that will connect the Sharrow to the two-way cycle track, or maybe right here to a straight line connecting. But yeah, no, this, of course, there's more details to follow.
Mm-hmm. Just the concern that I would have would be cycling northbound there and then having to cross traffic to get in, where there might be, you know, poles in the way or whatnot.
Absolutely, and I was I foresaw your question because I deal with other projects and I get a lot of feedback from the bicycle community, and I'm very well aware of their concerns, which are very valid. So when I was going through this slide, I'm like, yep, I know what question is gonna come up.
No,
but I just want to let you know that no, we're not. It's not that we're ignoring that. It's very important to us. However, at this stage, we're not even at 30% design. So we're just starting, kind of like, this is the concept. This is the goal. This is where we want to get to. And then after we win, you know, some report back from the cities, then we can focus on the details that are very important.
Okay. And this might be another question for down the road, but you sounded pretty sure about using what you called candlesticks as the barrier protector. Could you describe the, you know, like why that was decided as the barrier?
It hasn't been decided. Okay. I use that as an example, and I'm going to go back to the slide. You can see it on the renderings, just for starting, but you can also argue that in the renderings, you can see some kind of like a median. So there's like a couple of ideas that we're talking with City of Reno, what could be approved. And then there's some areas that we're not going to be able to put some kind of vertical separation. The reason being the fire department, they need certain clearances. So we're still working through those details that, you know, the minor details, but they're very important. But But yes, ideally, we would like to provide that extra, not only just a buffer, a painted buffer, we would like to provide an extra sense of safety for the cyclist.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other questions this evening for Maria? Okay, well, hearing none, Maria, thank you once again for coming and giving us this update. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. And if anybody has any questions at another time, please don't hesitate to call me or email or talk to Dan, and then he can release that question to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So this is item number 5. I guess we need to get a motion to accept the report. Can I get a motion to accept the report?
This
is
Julian
Suraj
Keller. I
Verma.
move to accept the report.
Suraj?
I will second.
Who seconded?
Suraj. A second. Thanks.
So who made the motion? Sorry about that.
I think Jillian made the motion, and I'll second.
Thank you. And second by Suraj. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the item is approved. Thank you. Moving on to item number 6. This item recommends approval of the proposed amendment number 3 to the 2020-2024 Regional Transportation Improvement Program or Plan. This is for possible action, and I assume we have a presentation from staff.
Yes, and you're correct, Mr. Chair. That should say program, not plan. So thank you for noting that. And I also, before I get started, I just did want to note that both Michael Moreno and Chuen Wang from RTC staff have joined since the beginning of the meeting. So just for the record.
Okay.
And again, my name is Dan Denges for the record. And staff is proposing an amendment. This would be the 3rd amendment to this particular version of the Regional Transportation Improvement Program, or RTIP as we call it. And this is primarily being prompted by a need to kind of update the scope for a couple projects. Probably the bigger of the two are Lemon Drive widening project. Currently, it's all one project that spans from the interchange with US 395 up to Chickadee Drive. There's a gap in the middle. So from an engineering and design perspective, after kind of embarking on this project, it was determined that it's probably better suited to split the project into two separate phases, 2 separate projects. So that's what is being proposed in this amendment. And another project that we're looking at is reallocating some funding from our building and maintenance, our building and facility program, transit funding, and reallocating some of that funding to development of a bus rapid transit station on Virginia Street across from the Peppermill Resort and Casino. Before we move forward for any of these types of projects, it's federally required that we have this funding documented in the TIP to show. And there are just a couple others. I do want to note that the materials that went out to the group list about 6 changes to some of the program projects. We've had a couple added since those initial agenda was mailed out, and those include a couple of NDOT projects and also our Pyramid Highway widening project. Basically, just some funding allocations to those 3 projects, looking at different funding sources and kind of shifting around some of the federal funding that was anticipated. So no scope change on those. The Pyramid project, the cost remains the same. It's just substituting one federal funding source for another. So as with any amendment, we do have to do a public comment period as outlined in our public participation plan. It's a 21-day public comment period. So this particular period began October 30th and will run through November 19th. And at that time, on our board meeting scheduled for November 20th, we'll do a public hearing to review the proposed amendments and any comments received. I will also note that an air quality analysis was not needed for transportation conformity, since all these projects are either non-capacity or are already existing projects in our RTIP, and there's no significant scope changes in terms of the project limits or capacity. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions for Dan? Dan, this is Vince Harris. I'm always intrigued about the interface between the RTP and the RTIP. Can you talk about that just a little bit?
Sure, absolutely. That's a great question. So essentially our RTIP, which is the program, kind of programs those first more short-term projects that are identified in the regional transportation plan, which is our long-term. We're currently living under the 2040 RTP, and as I think everyone knows, we are in the process of developing the 2050 RTP, but that's not yet been adopted. And so the RTIP really gets down to the level of detail on the scope of the projects that are listed in the short term, I'd say first 5 years of the RTP, identifies the funding source necessary to implement those projects, and breaks down the different costs for the different phases of the project, those being like preliminary engineering, if there's any right-of-way acquisition and construction costs. Does that kind of help answer the question?
Oh yeah, I'm familiar with it.
Okay, I know you are, so thank you. Hopefully that makes sense to everyone else.
Anybody else have any other questions for Dan this evening? Hearing none, thank you, Dan, for the update.
You.
I'd like to get a motion accepting this report, the approval of this report. Can I get a motion?
And I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Chair. If we could, I think we're really looking for recommended approval of the amendment, because we will then take this to our board.
Motion to recommend approval for the item, please.
Harvey Cates recommends approval of the item.
Thank you, Harvey. Can I get a second?
Jeff Bonanno, I second.
Thank you, Jeff. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the item passes. Thank you. And thank you again, Dan. Moving on to item number 7. This item is acknowledged receipt of a report on the 2050 RTP preliminary evaluation of projects. And I assume we have a presentation from staff.
Thank you. This is Amy Cummings with RTC, and I'll be providing an update with where we are on our 2050 Regional Transportation Plan development, which we were just talking about. So I'm going to share my screen here. We're still working on the technical analysis for all of the projects. So we don't have the full region to share with you today in terms of evaluation. We'll have that next meeting, we anticipate. But we have been working with a particular focus on downtown Reno. And I wanted to share the preliminary results that we have from that study. So these are all projects that would be incorporated into the RTP. Of course, our mission is to support a safe and vibrant and strong downtown that encourages people from the surrounding neighborhoods and throughout the region to come to downtown and take advantage of all the great entertainment and special events that we offer. We wanted to build on the Downtown Reno Action Plan, which recommends supporting walking, biking, and transit connectivity, and tying the university and the surrounding neighborhoods much more closely to downtown itself. In terms of what we have going for us, we have a great interconnected grid street network. We don't have that in many places in our community, so we want to take advantage of that. The traffic volumes are generally low at this point. We are anticipating future growth and redevelopment, so we think those traffic volumes are likely to increase, so we are planning for that. But our major problem we have today is transportation safety and pedestrian safety, as well as a lack of bicycle connectivity. So those are some of the things you'll hear that we're focusing on in this particular effort. This graphic is a map of the downtown area and some of the corridors we're focusing on. And I'm going to walk through some of these one by one. So you can see, we'll start with West 5th Street, which today has, again, pretty low traffic volumes, but high speeds. And we've had a number of very severe crashes. So we want to start exploring an option that takes that 4-lane road and converts it to add a center turn lane, have one travel lane in each direction, bicycle lanes, and maintain the on-street parking. And this is the type of design that we've seen all over our community, encourages people to drive closer to the speed limit, reduces the number of crashes as well as the severity of crashes. So we think this is a great tool for us to look at for West 5th Street. On West 4th Street, this is another, unfortunately, high crash corridor, but this is also where we anticipate most of the auto traffic is going to be traveling. So we're going to focus on our intersections, our pedestrian crossings, and our transit stops. In the long term, and this, the Lincoln Line extension is going to be a number of years out, but we are starting to think now of how we can extend our BRT service out to Keystone. And in the shorter term, we want to look for opportunities to upgrade our ride fixed route stops so that we have a higher level of amenity, we have improved pedestrian accessibility to our bus stops. And you may have noticed that there was not a bicycle facility on West 4th because of the space constraints. But one block south, we have West 3rd, which has very little traffic. It's a wide corridor. It does vary from block to block in some locations, but we see this as a great opportunity for a premier protected bicycle facility, similar to what we were looking at for Center Street. It could be a slightly different design. I think we have a lot of options to look at here, but it seems like a good fit for a multimodal use, such as a protected bike lane. Center Street, I won't go into many details since we just learned a lot about that from Maria. But I will highlight that this is so with West 3rd is our east-west spine for bicycle travel. Center Street would be the north-south spine on the center part of downtown. When you start looking at the west side of downtown, Vine Street is one of those corridors that connects the neighborhoods north of I-80 to downtown, and then can be a conduit to crossing the Truckee River as well. So right now, we have 4 travel lanes, very little traffic. So we're looking at a couple of options here. One would be simply restriping to add bicycle lanes, keep the on-street parking on both sides of the street, and add that center turn lane. Another option would be the protected bike lane, where we could have those candlestick type delineators or some other type of delineator between the cars and the bicycle facility. But because of the extra space required for that, we would only be able to accommodate parking on one side of the street. So we do have a couple of options there. And I wanted to call attention to the bridge over I-80. Again, that's one of the major barriers to connecting those neighborhoods to downtown. And we see this as an opportunity. One basic solution would be to just stripe some bike lanes. They would have to be rather narrow given the width of the bridge. Another option is to convert the bridge to bicycle pedestrian only traffic. There could be some concerns there with access. So as well as just general activity on the bridge, eyes on the street, and for safety purposes. So a third option is to convert that bridge to southbound only traffic for autos and have two-way traffic for bicycles and pedestrians. So these are things that we'll need to get into a full-blown design process specific to this corridor, but we're excited about some of the options that it presents. And when we look, again, back in downtown, one of our other barriers is the Truckee River. So we're looking at a couple of options here. One suggestion that we're looking at is to create a new bicycle and pedestrian only bridge at IDLEWILD Park near Dickerson Road. Another option, or perhaps both could be implemented, would be to upgrade the Booth Street Bridge so that it has better bicycle and pedestrian facilities. We know that improvements need to be made to that bridge because of flood control issues, so that could be incorporated there. And we're looking at how we could extend bike route and bike boulevard connections to provide access to those crossings. On East 6th Street, this is another one of our high crash corridors. So we're going to be doing some more in-depth looks at what we can do to improve safety on East 6th while still accommodating the traffic demands that we're anticipating. And that's the quick summary of where we are. We're going to be looking for opportunities for more parking downtown and look in more detail at those needs. We're going to be doing some more community outreach. We'll be launching within hopefully the next week a virtual public meeting with this information so that we can get some feedback from residents and others interested in downtown on these alternatives. And then we'll incorporate it into the regional transportation plan. And as I mentioned, we're not getting into a huge amount of detail on these corridors in this study, but that would come in future phases. So I welcome any input that you have or suggestions or questions on the downtown circulation study.
Well, thank you. Do we have any questions for the presenter this evening?
This is Mike Szynski for the record.
Great, Mike.
So I'm excited. I'm excited about the public meeting, virtual public meeting, and specifically, I was excited to see the Vine Street Bridge and the way you're thinking about it. You're thinking about various options. I frequently ride over the bridge with a bicycle and a trailer, so coming both ways. So it's I'm just encouraged by the process and glad you're thinking things through here. So more of just a comment and general excitement.
Thank you.
Do I hear anyone else have a question for the presenter? Okay, I don't hear any more questions. So hearing none, we thank you again for coming and giving us an update to the process and look forward to its completion. So that's item number 7. Can we get a motion to accept the report this evening?
Hey, this is Harvey Cates. I move that we accept the report because I got to my unmute button the quickest.
Thank you, Harvey. Can you get a second?
That Jillian Keller.
Harvey Cates, Julian Keller have first and second. Can we get a can we agree that all in favor say aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the item passes. Thank you. And item number 8, on to member announcements or agenda items for future CMAC meetings. Do we have any items from the committee this evening? Any items for future meetings from the committee? All right, hearing none, we'll move on. RTC ride access staff items, any of those informational items this evening, Dan?
I do have a couple announcements. Dan Denges, planning manager. The first announcement is that next Wednesday, Veterans Day, we will be offering free rides on all of our transit services. So we want to get the word out on that. The other announcement I have, I'm going to be doing a little bit of reading here, so forgive me for reading verbatim, but did wanted to let everyone know that Vision Zero Truckee Meadows Regional Task Force is reminding the community to use extra caution for the time change that recently occurred, as it's getting darker earlier, and statistics show that 80% of pedestrian fatalities occur between dusk and dawn. So as part of the Truckee Meadows Task Force efforts, they've started a statewide, or joined a statewide campaign called, it's a hashtag dusk with the number 2 dawn. NB, and it's meant to remind the community to take extra precautions and to bring the number of pedestrian fatalities in our region down to 0. There is a video clip out there. I'm not going to play it for you tonight, but I did just want to touch on some of the highlights. That's some of the recommendations in the video, and that is just to remind people to stay in well-lit areas, walk with friends, be visible so drivers can see you, and carry a flashlight or have some sort of reflective clothing. Put down your phone unless you're using it for a flashlight. Take off your headphones. Stay on sidewalks and use marked crosswalks. Avoid wearing dark clothing. Be aware of your surroundings and your traffic, and just be cognizant of walking at night and all the things to consider. So there's my PSA.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Dan.
Yeah.
Dan, this is Jim Gee, for the record, Manager of Service Plan and Innovation for RTC. I have one more announcement. Over the last few months, we've had presentations regarding the creation of our Coordinated Human Services Transportation Plan. That plan is now reaching the draft final report stage. And so before the end of this week, all of the members of this committee will receive by email a copy of the draft final report. There will be public comments taken over the next 21 days. But if committee members would take some time, take a look at the report. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to email myself or Dan, and we'll get responses to you. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the committee already for all the input that they've given us throughout the process. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Jim. On to item number 10. Dan, is there any additional public comment this evening?
No comments received.
All right, thank you. If I could get a motion to adjourn, item number 11. Motion to adjourn.
Suraj Verma, I move to adjourn.
Thank you, Suraj. Second?
Marisa Urias to second.
Marisa Urias, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Still want to be here? Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned at 6:20. Thank you.
Thank
you, everyone.
Everybody.
Have a great night.
See you next month.
All right.
Stay healthy.